Hey everybody, welcome back to Sip&Talk. I'm Joe. And as always, I'm ready to dive into some seriously juicy info with you all today. It's like we're mixing up a knowledge cocktail here. Strong stuff, but oh, so smooth going down.
And I'm Sunny, your friendly neighborhood fact checker. I'll make sure we get all the ingredients right. Speaking of mixing things up, you know it's always a good blend? Travel whiskey and discovering awesome new things. You have to check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yeah, Mickey's the best. He's always got something cool going on.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time zone you're in right now. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
Hello everyone, so glad you're here with us.
So grab your coffee, grab your whiskey, whatever gets your gears turning today. And speaking of coffee, I have to tell you what happened to me yesterday. I was in line at this local cafe, right?
Okay, I love a good coffee shop story.
Right. So the guy in front of me gets his iced coffee, turns around, and completely obliterates another customer. Just spills it everywhere.
Oh no.
And instead of apologizing, he just glares at the guy and screams, "What are you looking at? You were looking at your phone too."
Okay.
Everyone does it. Everyone's the exact same.
Wow. I mean, my eyes would have rolled so far back into my head.
I was standing there like, are you kidding me? It was just infuriating.
It is, but you know, it's actually a textbook example of what we call squid tactics.
Squid tactic.
Yeah, or what psychologists call whataboutism. When someone makes a mess or they're trapped in a really humiliating situation, their ego just can't handle the accountability.
Right, they can't just say, my bad.
Exactly. So rather than fixing the mess, they spray ink. They drag everyone else down into the mud with them to create this illusion that, hey, the whole world is just as broken as I am.
Which instantly neutralizes their own shame.
Exactly. It makes them feel better without actually doing any of the work to fix the problem.
And you know, that brings us right into today's deep dive, because this isn't just some daily annoyance. This exact "you guys are just as bad" logic is happening on a massive global scale.
It really is.
Today, Sip&Talkers, we are going on a mental marathon. We're going to explore a massive international tech trap that is actively draining a superpower's economy.
A trap that is honestly hiding in plain sight.
Right. Then we're going to do a thought experiment on whether the rest of the world can actually walk away if that economy collapses.
Spoiler alert, it's complicated.
Very. And finally, we'll get into the deep cultural psychology of why citizens in free societies like Taiwan are so deeply disgusted by that you're just as bad defense. So let's jump in. We've got a lot of ground to cover.
Let's do it.
So looking at this recent piece from The Economist, there's a fascinating breakdown of the current U.S. tech restrictions. It's basically a massive trap.
It is. It's a strategy known as strategic exhaustion. It's actually a classic geopolitical playbook.
Straight out of the 1980s, right? The whole Star Wars program analogy.
Exactly. So back in the Reagan administration, the U.S. announced this incredibly futuristic, just impossibly expensive, space-based laser defense system.
Star Wars.
Right. And the Soviet Union looked at it, completely panicked, and felt they had to match it. So they diverted vital resources away from basic civilian needs like food and infrastructure and poured every last ruble into a military tech race they just couldn't afford.
And it essentially bankrupted them from the inside out.
Yep. And the argument today is that a very similar trap has been set. But this time, the bait isn't space lasers. It's artificial intelligence and high-end semiconductors.
Okay, let me bring that down to a neighborhood level so I can wrap my head around it. Imagine a guy down the street, right? His house is actively in foreclosure. He can barely afford groceries for his family. But his rich neighbor just parked a brand new limited edition supercar in the driveway and flexes on him like, hey, you'll never be able to afford the chips that run this engine.
The ultimate neighborhood rivalry.
Right. So our broke guy's ego completely snaps. He empties his entire life savings, the money meant for his kids' education, just to buy this massive carbon fiber shell for a supercar. Just to save face.
I love this analogy.
But because of trade restrictions, he's secretly forced to power this shiny new car with an engine stripped from like a 1998 Honda Civic.
Yes, that captures the macroeconomic reality perfectly. Economists are calling it half ocean, half fire right now.
Half ocean, half fire. What does that mean?
So the export machine for electric vehicles and green tech, that's blazing hot. That's the fire. But the domestic economy, the ocean, is freezing over.
Freezing over how bad?
Well, let's look at April 2026. 32% of their industrial enterprises were operating at a loss.
Wait, 32%? A third of them are just bleeding money.
Yes. Just to put that in perspective, That is actually worse than the darkest days of the 1998 Asian financial crisis.
That is insane.
And it gets worse on the consumer side. Retail sales growth hit a miserable 0.2%. But the really crazy data point from March 2026 is that household bank loans declined year over year for the very first time in history.
For the first time ever. Why are everyday citizens suddenly terrified to borrow money?
It all comes back to the real estate collapse. In that system, roughly 70% of a citizen's wealth is tied up in property.
Oh, wow.
So when housing prices plummet and developers go bankrupt left and right, a family's primary source of wealth just vanishes.
They just stop spending.
Exactly. They go into a state of financial hibernation. They stop buying cars. They don't take out loans. They stop eating out. That consumer freeze is why retail sales have completely flatlined.
Which honestly makes the behavior of their local governments look completely unhinged. Well, the central mandate from the top is all about high-quality tech development, right? Yeah. So local officials are forced to follow suit just to keep their jobs.
Right. They have to hit those KPIs.
Yeah. So you have a city like Lanzhou. They literally cannot afford to pay their public bus drivers right now, yet they are pouring massive funding into commercial aerospace and low-altitude drones.
It's wild. Or look at Guizhou. They blew 150 billion RMB building these massive cloud computing and data centers.
Just massive server farms in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. But the actual profits and tax revenues generated by that data, they flow right back to the coastal tech giants in Shenzhen and Beijing.
So the locals get nothing.
Nothing but massive electricity bills and servers generating heat. It's a centralized gamble that works if you have endless cash. But when your local governments are drowning in debt, it's just a desperate bet at the casino.
I have to push back here for a second, though.
Sure.
Because if you read the tech headlines, they are making leaps in AI. We constantly hear about these new models catching up to Western capabilities. Does that mean the supercar engine is actually working?
It definitely looks that way on the surface. But this actually reveals the true brilliance of the trap.
Okay, lay it on me.
The strategy initiated under Donald Trump and continued since wasn't to cut off all technology. The strategy was to allow older Tier 4 chips to still be exported.
Okay, keeping them hooked by intentionally selling them older hardware.
Yes, exactly. It's all about creating digital dependency. It's about the software ecosystem, specifically NVIDIA's CUDA platform.
The CUDA platform, yeah.
Right, CUDA isn't just a physical chip. It's the software language that developers use to talk to the AI. By keeping older chips available, you keep the world's developers writing in that American software language.
Oh, I see. So if you cut them off entirely, they'd just invent their own software language out of necessity.
You got it. By keeping the older chips flowing, you make it nearly impossible for a domestic competitor to introduce a new programming language without totally alienating every developer out there.
That is incredibly subtle. So behind the scenes, these massive tech champions are slapping a 100% domestic sticker on their AI models, but they're secretly relying on those older imported parts.
Just to meet their internal quotas and keep up appearances, yeah.
Meanwhile, they're bleeding capital. And the social cost of all this AI investment is basically a ticking time bomb.
A huge one.
Because AI, by definition, increases productivity but eliminates jobs. And they currently have about 320 million people categorized as flexible workers.
Right, like delivery drivers and gig workers.
Exactly. Those are the exact jobs that automation decimates first.
And this is where the lack of a social safety net becomes catastrophic. The system fundamentally opposes Western-style welfare. They view it as something that fosters laziness.
So when the algorithm takes those 320 million jobs, there's no unemployment insurance to catch them.
None. No food stamp program, nothing.
Man. So let's look at the fallout of this. Say this supercar gamble totally fails. The engine blows up, the gig workers are displaced, and the factory of the world crashes into a brick wall.
Okay, worst case scenario.
Right. Can the US and Europe just put on their sunglasses, walk away, and say, well, we successfully de-risked? Because we hear about nearshoring to Mexico and Vietnam constantly?
It's a total illusion.
Yeah.
The idea of a clean decoupling is honestly a math and physics fantasy.
Really? Even with all the new factories in Monterey?
Yes. We've seen final assembly move to places like Vietnam or Mexico, sure.
Yeah.
But if you look at the actual supply chain mapping, you build a factory in Mexico. But where do the screws come from?
China.
Exactly. Where do the batteries and the rare earth magnets come from? Shenzhen. It's just supply chain rerouting.
So they're just adding a layover.
Yes.
Yeah.
If that central hub suddenly collapses, it wouldn't be a severed tie. It would be a global economic heart attack.
Okay, let's run that thought experiment for the listeners. If that heart attack happens, how does it actually hit the person tuning in right now?
Well, the first wave is what we can call the inflation volcano.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. For decades, you and everyone listening have enjoyed a deflationary dividend from cheap overseas manufacturing. If that vanishes overnight, alternative manufacturing hubs simply do not have the capacity to replace it.
Right, you can't just spin up a million factories in a week.
Exactly. Think about the smartphone in your pocket or the appliances in your kitchen. You aren't just paying 10% more. You're looking at completely empty shelves for months, while the rest of the world tries to build factories that literally do not exist yet.
Wow.
The price of basic electronics, clothing, and hardware would skyrocket, triggering a hyperinflation that would make recent years look incredibly mild.
But the damage wouldn't just stop at the grocery store checkout line, would it? Because if everyday consumers are paying double for basics, they definitely aren't buying foreign cars or luxury goods.
Which leads us to wave 2, a multinational corporate massacre.
Massacre.
Yeah. China isn't just a factory, right? It's a massive consumer market. The profits of European automotive giants like Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz, they are deeply tied to those consumers.
And French luxury brands, too.
Oh, absolutely. If that market crashes, the stock prices of those multinationals will halve instantly. And because Western pension funds and 401s are heavily invested in those blue-chip stocks, everyday retirees in the U.S. and Europe would see their life savings evaporate.
So our wallets are completely fundamentally stitched together. But the third wave is the one that really scares me.
The geopolitical wave.
Yeah. I was looking into the Industrial and Supply Chain Security Law. The decrees 834 and 835 that were quietly enacted back in April 2026.
Right.
If things get bad internally, couldn't they use that law to basically hold global supply chains hostage?
Yes, that's the cornered beast scenario.
Yeah.
The new law essentially allows the state to take retaliatory measures if it perceives its supply chains are threatened.
That's a huge psychological danger.
Exactly. A quartered regime facing massive unemployment and a collapsing economy might resort to aggressive external retaliation, or even military adventures just to distract its populace from the domestic failure.
Okay, so is there any scenario where this doesn't end in a massive fiery explosion?
There is a silver lining. The alternative is the slow bleed.
A slow bleed.
Right. If this decline doesn't happen overnight, but rather plays out over a really painful 5 to 10 years, multinational companies might actually have enough time to gradually build back up supply chains.
Okay, so time is the only way out.
Essentially. The transition will still be incredibly expensive, and let's be real, the era of cheap global goods is permanently over. But the global economy would survive it without a catastrophic collapse.
You know, this brings up a massive paradox for me.
What's that?
Well, look at France. They raised the retirement age by a couple of years, and the streets are literally on fire.
Oh, yeah. Total chaos.
Politicians get voted out instantly. Yet we are looking at a society here enduring a multi-year real estate collapse, wiped out life savings, and a staggering 16.3% youth unemployment rate as of April 2026.
Yep.
And the system hasn't broken. How? Why hasn't it crashed?
It comes down to 3 structural survival cheats that Western democracies simply do not possess.
Okay, what's cheat number 1?
First is their export armor. We are currently witnessing China Shock 2.0. Because domestic consumption is totally dead, they are aggressively exporting their overcapacity in EVs, solar panels, and batteries.
Flooding the global market.
Exactly. This generated a massive $1.2 trillion surplus in 2025 alone. That is a huge injection of foreign cash keeping the lights on.
So they are bleeding internally, but they're basically hooking themselves up to an external blood transfusion.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, what's the second cheat?
Absolute financial control.
Mm-hmm.
In a free market, if a developer or a local government defaults on a massive loan, it triggers bankruptcies. The bank fails, the market panics.
Right, the 2008 playbook.
Exactly. But when the state owns both the bank and the debt, they simply freeze the risk by decree.
Wait, they just say no more risk?
Basically. If a local government can't pay a 10-year loan, the central authority just orders the bank to change the spreadsheet. They roll it over into a 30-year low-interest loan.
They just change the math on the spreadsheet to avoid the panic. That is wild.
The debt doesn't vanish, obviously. It slowly dilutes the currency over decades. But they don't let the bubble burst. They transform an acute heart attack into chronic diabetes.
Wow. Okay, and the third cheat is cultural, right?
Yes. Extreme bottom-level tolerance. Because there is no comprehensive welfare state, the population has an ingrained habit of hyper-saving. We're talking a savings rate of over 30%.
Which is unheard of here.
Completely. So when crisis hits, they don't demand government bailouts. They internalize the pain, they downgrade their consumption, move back home, or take grueling gig jobs. The state relies entirely on the immense capacity of its citizens to quietly absorb economic suffering.
And man, this brings us right back to the spilled coffee at the beginning of the show.
It really does.
Because this immense silent capacity to absorb pain, it creates a profound cultural clash, especially when interacting with people from free, civic-minded societies like Taiwan.
Definitely.
Think about it. When citizens living under a rigid, authoritarian system suffer, but they absolutely cannot speak out against the people in charge, how do they cope?
Yeah.
They look across the strait at a messy, noisy, chaotic democracy and point their finger.
They spray the ink.
Yes, they say, look at your protests, look at your political scandals. You guys have corruption too. You're just as bad.
It's the exact same defense mechanism as the guy in the coffee shop. And it's vital to understand why this specific argument infuriates people in free societies.
Why does it hit such a nerve?
Because it deliberately blurs the line between an individual failure and a systemic design. In a free society, if an individual breaks a rule or a politician is corrupt, it is viewed as a breach of the social contract.
Right. Society shames it, exposes it, and corrects it.
Exactly. And under authoritarianism, the system fundamentally breaking its people and silencing them, that is the normalized baseline. So comparing the two is just intellectually dishonest.
Because the power of the vote completely changes the context of the pain. Yes, democracies are messy. Yes, we have scandals. But when we experience pain, we can protest in the streets, we can expose the bad actors in the press, and we can use our votes to fire the politicians who failed us.
Exactly.
The pain in a democracy is the sting of medicine. It's part of the healing process. The pain in a silent society is just suffering without a voice. It's an untreated wound.
The whataboutism falls flat because it ignores the mechanism of accountability entirely. A democratic society is highly sensitive, like a nervous system that feels every single pinch.
And that sensitivity allows it to course correct.
Exactly. An authoritarian system just numbs the pain to maintain stability, but the underlying damage continues to accumulate unseen.
So bringing this all together, what we're really looking at is a tale of two entirely different civilizations. One operates on a grand narrative. It's willing to sacrifice the daily happiness, the wallets, and the voices of its citizens to build this gleaming supercar of high-tech glory to challenge the U.S.
Well said.
And the other operates on an oceanic civic culture. It's a culture where the true measure of a successful nation isn't quantum computing or data centers. It's human dignity.
Right.
It's the right to stand at a fair line, the right to a social safety net, and crucially, the right to complain out loud when things go wrong.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to add a disclaimer here as we wrap up. Our discussion today isn't meant to criticize or discriminate against any nation or its people.
Of course not.
We are simply taking an objective look at macroeconomic data, systemic structures, and human psychology. The goal of this show has always been to encourage independent, critical thinking about the systems that govern our world. And let's be real, the people living under these economic pressures are showing incredible, undeniable resilience.
100%. We are all just trying to understand the chessboard we're living on. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredibly deep dive today. If you enjoyed this, please hit that subscribe button to Sip and Talk so you never miss an episode.
Yes, please subscribe.
And hey, while you're on YouTube, you absolutely have to check out our old friend Mickey's channel, Mickey to Life. He just dropped an incredible Hokkaido travel vlog, and his unboxing videos are absolutely hilarious.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Seriously, go watch him get attacked by a crab in Hokkaido. It will completely lighten the mood after today's heavy topics.
Highly, highly recommended. And to close out today's conversation, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final question to ponder.
Give it to us.
We've talked about the whataboutism at the coffee shop and the illusion of equality and suffering. If you had to choose, would you rather live in a highly sensitive society where people complain loudly at the slightest discomfort but actually have the tools to fix it, or a society that can endure earth-shattering pain but demands your absolute silence?
Wow. Let that sit with you next time someone bumps into you and refuses to apologize. Until next time, Sip and Talkers, drink up and keep talking.